broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Americans AfterBuzz After Show, Season 3, Episode 10, The Stingers. I am Adrian Snow, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow. That's MSEDRIANSNOW. And this the rest of my panel.
Matt Ritter. You can find me on Twitter at MattRitter1 and YouTube, Matt Ritter Comedy.
Josh Richmond. Of course, go to @RadioTFB on Twitter or go to joshrichmond.net for other goodies.
Ben Bateman. You can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter and Instagram. How are you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, and as always, of course, please subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. My accent just kicked in. SoundCloud, Texas. We really appreciate your feedback. We love hearing from you guys on the Twitter, on the YouTube, and everything. Want to give a special shout out to Lois Elfman. We always hear from you. So
yeah, you're awesome.
Yeah,
you give good comments. And
yeah,
you keep us honest.
Yeah, so we really appreciate that. On that note, we do have a guest. I just got the one moment. That will be on the show momentarily. We're just calling in right now.
Matt, stop Tindering. We're on the show.
He says the number isn't working, so let's.
Okay, so we'll give it a second.
You know, I just realized this episode is called Stingers, and we're AfterBuzz talking about stingers. How appropriate!
Yes,
this is
right.
Pretty good.
Talking into bees' bums and stuff.
Yes, this is where the stinger would be usually.
Right there.
On the subject of, we will avoid technical difficulty discussion and let you.
Should I call him
Tinder.
from my phone? He says the number that we gave him is not working. Do you know if this is the right number?
No, that's the wrong number.
Okay, because that's the number Phil gave me. So do you have the right number?
Phil misspelled it.
Yeah. All right. So what's the number?
I'll type it in.
Okay.
So we do have our guest Kelly O'Coin coming on. He plays Pastor Tim on the show.
Just a moment.
In just a minute. We're just got some technical difficulties. I've always wanted to do the sweaty balls stick. Sorry, I'm just killing time.
The sweaty balls sketch, for those that don't know, is not a sex sketch. It's Alec Baldwin on Saturday Night Live from years and years ago, and he is, my name is Pete Sweaty, and I'm here to talk about my famous.
Should we just run through the entire sweaty balls sketch right now?
Ball sketch,
They're delicious, like baked goods that are Pete Sweaty and his sweaty balls.
They're meatballs.
I like dipping them.
Yeah.
Some sauce.
It's a great sketch.
Is really good. You just dunk it right in.
You just dunk it right in there. I like dunking them in my tea sometimes.
Oh, your balls.
All right, guys,
let's
stop talking balls and start talking Kelly O'Coin.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we have a really special guest. You may know him as Pastor Tim on The Americans. You may know him as Gary Semper from House of Cards, or 46 other credits on IMDb, which I think qualifies him for the Character Actor Hall of Fame. Thank you for calling in, Kelly O'Coin.
Hey, how you doing? That's a great introduction.
Good.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Do you consider yourself a character actor? That's how the external sort of reputation when you get that many credits under your belt. But what do you call yourself?
I'm mainly just thrilled because I'm a working actor right now. But yeah, I'd say as soon as I lost my hair, I was pretty much a character actor.
That's when it happens. That's when it happens. The hair starts thinning, and all of a sudden
you wouldn't be able to tell that by this particular show, obviously, with that little mop I got on my head.
Yeah. Do you get to start hanging out then with Stephen Tobolowsky and J.K. Simmons? Is there like a character actor bar that you get invited to?
To God's ears, my friend.
Yeah.
Did they give you a silly wig, or is that straight up you've grown out? You mentioned your silly mop just now.
No.
This is that's a wig. Yeah.
So Kelly, thank you so much for calling in. I wanted to jump right into this episode because it was a pretty bombshell one. You kind of blew up everybody's world.
That was crazy. That was a great episode. I didn't actually. I was there for the table read, but I still was. When Paige was getting the news, I was getting a little teary. She's so good, right?
Oh my God, really good.
Jesus. Yeah, it was exciting.
And did you? I mean, at what point do you know the storylines? I mean, is this like a week before, or how long do you have to prepare for that big moment, sort of?
Well, there's some episodes that I don't know until I watch them on TV. If I'm not part of the of that particular episode, I won't be at the table read necessarily. So I won't see the scripts. I actually don't know exactly what happens in the final episode of the season, for instance.
So
I'm on pins and needles too.
Yeah, I think I want to ask for all the AfterBuzz fans of The Americans out there, what's your angle, Pastor Tim?
Yeah, what's going on with you?
You can't just be a man of God. You got to be up to something.
No, it's an interesting. It is an interesting character because I actually think when I first got the part, when I first auditioned for it, I didn't know that it was going to be more than just one episode. I don't know if they knew. I don't know how far ahead they were writing at that point, but yeah. And then I kept trying to figure out if I was KGB or FBI, and I suppose anything is possible. But I'll say that one of the things I like about it is it's sort of radical on mainstream TV today. He seems to be very much a religious man who is, not a Tea Partier and someone who just seems to actually honestly care about his community, and that actually seems like a somewhat radical portrayal of the clergy these days.
Right? It's actually a really sympathetic portrayal of Christianity. You know, you're not a pastor with like a dark secret. You're not a pastor who's like secretly like a child molester being moved from place to place or has like some sort of Republican agenda. You're just like actually like a good guy and a community leader.
But I do think it's funny that because we've been so trained to expect that when you say the line in the episode, Paige, she needs to be treated more like an adult. The hair stands up a little bit on your arm. You're like, oh, that's what that means. But I don't know if this really is. It could just be face value.
And oh my God, the focus pulling on that episode blew me away. Like when they, I said my little thing, and then it focuses right on. I mean, I laughed out loud when it focused on Philip's reaction.
Yeah, moves right to that.
He could have slit your throat right there in that travel agent office.
Yeah, God, eyes shooting daggers.
I was just going to say the one interesting thing also, my father was in politics when I was growing up in this era. I was actually a little older than you guys. I was actually Paige's age during this specific era. And I lived in Washington, D.C., so it's sort of a mind, I don't know if I can say that on the show, but a mind trip. But I remember when my dad was he's a very liberal Democrat, and when he was campaigning, some of his best speeches and some of his most adamant supporters were these progressive churches and the pastors and the flocks at these particular churches, and I just think that's what I knew of the church when I was growing up, and we're not religious people, but.
And, I think that's still true now. I think like the Catholic Church, for instance, gets behind a ton of progressive causes. It's just it's not really the image that you see in the media as much.
Yeah, and they're not the loudest. The
right.
squeaky wheel is what gets the attention.
It seems like when you are playing a character of any kind that has a staunch religious position, a lot of the decisions as that character are based on, obviously, it could be a religion that you're into in real life, but I mean, it's a character you're playing on television, so I don't know if that is. Have you played a religious character in the past where you've had to connect with something on that deep level and take that leap of sort of faith as a character before?
That's actually an interesting question that I don't know why I'm blanking on. That's fast. I don't. You know what? I think the only other time I ever played specifically twice in plays. I played one in a play called Coils, which was about the Marquis de Sade, and I went crazy. The Marquis made me go crazy, which was fascinating. And then another one in high school. So no, I mean, essentially not. I haven't done many. I used to audition for them a lot, and there was a period of time when it was always priests who turned out to be pedophiles.
Right.
I never got them, so I guess I wasn't creepy enough.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, right? I think so, in retrospect. I wanted the job at the time, but I think maybe,
I love that story. I love that story on your IMDb page about your dad's campaign. About that, was that your first acting role in his commercial campaign?
Oh, that was probably my first on-screen, or at least one of my first on-screen roles. You mean like the commercial?
Yeah. Can you tell our viewers and listeners about that?
What's that?
Can you tell our listeners and viewers about that?
Okay. Yeah. My dad was. He is still a liberal Democrat, but he was a congressman from the 1st District of Oregon, and during the whole Reagan Revolution, all the Democrats, and it's still the case today, but were being painted as loose spending, big spending Democrats. And to counter that, one of the ways they countered that was to put me in an ad. I was being forced to wash my car, and I was looking at the camera smirking and talking about how cheap my dad was. Like, he always asked, can I get an extra pound of free air at the gas station, and something about discount chewing gum and whatnot. And it was really fun at the time. I don't know if the commercial was any good, but we won, so I guess it helped. But yeah, I think that was one of my first TV or on-screen things.
So, part of the reason I love Pastor Tim on this show is because, you know, the Jennings are such cool customers, but you're like one of the few characters who can really get under their skin. You know, and it's, you know, and it's so, you know, just by kind of like being a normal good guy, but it just happened, you know, just happening to be Christian, which really rubs them the wrong way. But, you know, Philip, you know, got so aggressive towards you in season 2, and you were so kind of unflappable in the face of that. Do you, I mean, don't you feel like this pastor would have like trepidation going back and still kind of, you know, poking this bee's nest?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that a little bit, and a lot of it just has to do with the amount of time that has gone by, and there were overtures. Like Philip and Elizabeth made the first overtures in The Next Time You Saw Me, so that it sort of calmed things down a little bit.
Right.
I mean, it's an open question. I just decided that the way Pastor Tim has to approach these things is to assume that approach this relationship is just to assume the best. You know, it's kind of it is that is an interesting. It's always in the back of my mind, even when I showed up at the at when we were shooting the scene where I showed up at their travel agency.
Right.
The episode tonight was like, you know, this is the first time, I was saying to Matthew, this is the first time we've been in a room alone together since, you know, that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, time heals all wounds, I suppose.
I think it's funny that you definitely, as you said, as Josh said, you get to get under their skin so well. You almost have this like plethora of lines you've uttered in the show where you give them, and it almost like if I was playing the character, I would not be able to stop smirking because the reaction you get is just so. It's just they're so annoyed, and you're such a smiley character, you're so happy. It almost seems like it would be too easy to play it. You know what I mean? You get the best. You get some of the best moments. The dinner table scene about the baptism is like one of my favorite moments of the whole season.
Yeah. That long pause where nobody knows what to say. It's like, I'm gonna get baptized. What the? Excuse me, did you say that? Yeah.
You killed them with you killed them with kindness, is what you did.
And then Noah's like, "That's great. That's great. It's such a good scene."
I feel like I have to meet Stan Beeman now at some point. Maybe he'll come to my church. Something. Seems to be on my.
It seems totally within the realm of possibility.
Totally possible. You brought up a point of when you first auditioned that you didn't know if maybe you'd be KGB or FBI. Do you think that there could be a wonderful plot twist of you being more than just a preacher?
Sure, yeah.
That would be
maybe
fun.
I'm such a good agent that I can, yeah. No, I didn't think that necessarily until I got the word that they were going to bring me back the second time. And I thought, maybe there's, you know, the whole first season I was in, which was season 2, I kept wondering if the next script was going to be the bombshell, where I find out what a badass I really am, you know?
Yeah.
00 character.
You never know. Everyone's got a little card up their sleeve. You never know.
It sounds like you're a pretty big fan of watching The Americans. Do you watch any other television shows that you cling to on a weekly basis?
You know, my 2 favorite shows, I have to, well, I mean, I have a bunch. I watch House of Cards in 2 sittings probably every season. So
right.
That's one of my favorites. But my the other 2 that are currently running now, Justified and The Americans, the 2 FX shows, 2 Graham Yost shows too.
Company man, it sounds like.
Yeah. What's that?
I said you're a company man.
I guess I am, but really, I mean, and my wife particularly loves Justified too. She actually brought me to it 5 years ago. And I love Louis too. I'm if I can campaign here to get a part on Louis someday.
Yeah,
this is the place.
We definitely hook people up. You know, it's got to be a little bit surreal. I mean, you are on sort of two of the really hottest shows on TV right now. It's got to be somewhat of a surreal feeling for you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. I'd be an idiot if I wasn't aware that these are 2 of the best, at least in my estimation, 2 of the best written, produced, acted shows on TV, and I do feel incredibly honored. There was a chunk of time when they were shooting at the same time, and House of Cards shoots down in Baltimore, and and actually, The Americans couldn't be closer. It's just 20 minutes from my house in Brooklyn, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But the two casting directors worked very well together, and they worked out the schedule, so we didn't. They were going back and forth with all the PA or the ADs, and we didn't really have to stress about it too much. But so I have to thank them for that. But it is, and it's wonderful. I hope it keeps going. But it's really been a great ride.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've been cast in these like amazing shows so far. Is there like one dream role or type of role that you've always wanted to play but haven't had the chance to play yet, or like what would you really want to play on TV that you haven't done yet?
Other than Louis.
Man.
Other than Louis.
Other than what?
Other than Louis.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I want to play Louis. Yeah. I want to recast that damn show. Put me in it. You know, it's a great question. I actually, for some reason, the first thing that before you even finished that sentence, of Al Swearingen on Deadwood popped into my mind.
Oh, wow.
What a good character that was.
Yeah, David Milch dialogue. You could just have a ball with that.
Yeah, you know, one of those. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. Something,
I like that.
You know, the anti-hero that's so complicated, and you get a lot of stillness, a lot of. You can also go nuts. That's it.
Who knows? Maybe I'll get
final answer.
Maybe you'll get
Nice.
cast on Walking Dead. You'll be like a modern day John Cazale. Everything you do is a hit. I have
Oh
one.
man, yeah.
It's a good one. I have one more question for you. And I want you to answer this totally honestly. Was the double behind the back crossover last night that Steph Curry had against Chris Paul the highlight of the year? Was it the #1 highlight?
No, because it wasn't a Portland Trailblazer highlight. It can't be the highlight of the year. But it was, you know, it was not without its charm.
Then the highlight has probably been one of Dame Lillard's 3-point buzzer beaters. I think he's had a few.
He's had some good ones.
No, that was a pretty smooth move. I only saw it in highlights because I was actually this time. I was in Portland the last 3 nights with my dad watching a couple Blazer games. So I only saw it in highlights, but there was some pretty great Lamarcus Aldridge highlights over the weekend that I might put up there.
You guys will be a tough out in the playoffs. I'll look forward to the series.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we let you go, unless you guys have other questions, I wanted to just give you a chance to sell yourself out here for everybody. Where can we find you? What are you working on other than this show?
Oh, sure. Well, I would have said I was just on Forever last night, so I guess that doesn't really count. I'm going to be hopefully I'll be back on these shows next season, but you never know what happens, I guess. I'm going to play. I know, I just was like, I got to put out a little tease. Anyway, I'm also doing a play in New York over the summer, Manhattan Theater Club called Good Stock. Anyone's in New York. And that's it for now. Oh, I'm going to be shooting right now it's called the Untitled James Marston Project, but Danny Glover's in it, a bunch of interesting people, so I'll be shooting that soon.
And James Marston.
James Marston, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Good call.
Very cool. Well, we'll have to set up a little a basketball game then at some point out here. A hoop in the backyard.
That sounds good. Can I get a ringer in, though? I think I've got some years on you, so...
Anybody you want that's on one of the shows that you're working on.
Perfect.
Kevin Spacey. If you can get Kevin Spacey out here for a little...
Absolutely.
Oh, he would be unflappable, right?
Yeah.
He's a crunch time guy.
Although he kind of throws like a girl in the backyard and has the cards.
I was watching the UConn game. Come on, they got some great female players.
That's true. This is very true. All right, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And where can everyone find you on the social media, Kelly?
Oh, well, I've got a Facebook page, but on Twitter, I'm Brooklyn Blazer, actually, without the vowels. So, Brooklyn Blazer.
Brooklyn Blazer.
Wonderful.
Right, exactly.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you.
And I love your podcast, guys.
Oh, thanks.
I'm happy to be on it. You guys, the conversation is always so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's really nice of you to say.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, thank you so much for calling in and taking time to talk with us about the show and just your life. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
Bye,
Thank
Kelly.
you.
Take care.
You as well. Take care.
Bye.
So now that we're diving into the episode
Nice.
itself, holy crap! What happened this week?
Quite an ending.
Oh, boys. Okay, well, first thoughts. I guess we should go ahead and start with that, and then we'll jump in.
Bombshell.
Yeah.
My first thoughts were they were a little less prepared than I thought they would be for that moment.
Did you get the sense for just a quick second that they had a backup plan? Like, if this happens early, we're going to have this lie that we're going to tell?
No, I got the sense, like I just said, I just got the sense that they really hadn't expected it to be then, and they just were thrown off.
Of course not.
You know?
I didn't expect it to be then. I
Yeah.
didn't think she was that savvy. It'd be real.
Yeah.
That said, though, I feel like Elizabeth's plan all along has kind of been to, like, leave Paige the trail of breadcrumbs. Like, I think she wanted Paige to kind of at some point figure it out herself or call them out on it. I don't think it was ever going to be. I don't think it was ever going to be like, sit down, Paige. We need to tell you something. No suspicion whatsoever. I think it always kind of had to come from her.
Okay. Interesting.
I think it sticks better that way almost. You know, like now that Paige has kind of discovered it herself, it feels like something she did. Like it almost like maybe on some psychological level, it's like it's her fault.
I think it's more dangerous that way, but what do you think, Ben?
My first thoughts on the episode in general were that I didn't think it was that great of an episode other than that stuff. I thought that whole segment was awesome. I found myself like a little less interested in most of the rest of the episode, but obviously it was balanced out by a huge payoff.
I mean, a lot of the other storylines, they were kind of like check-in moments, you know?
Yeah. I think with this episode, because it is episode 10, they were doing a lot of things where it was just kind of like, and we're going to start tying everything up so that we can kind of get into like the juiciness of the season finale.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Like a lot of those storylines had to have their second to last.
Because I think there
Set
were
up
like
moments.
Right.
Yeah.
I counted like 8 different 6 different storylines.
Yeah, we spent a little time with everybody, and maybe we should just talk about some of that stuff before we get into the big juicy stuff.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
I mean, I was just gonna say, well, I mean, luckily it's probably a little shorter of a show today because obviously we had an awesome interview. So, but it's nice that most of those things were just little buttons because we probably mostly want to talk about Paige. I will say, and I know I said it last week, she's my favorite character on the show. She's the person whose scenes I enjoy the most. What are you looking at me like that?
What? I was like,
and I thought she absolutely knocked it out of the park.
Is it pandering to say my favorite character is Pastor Tim?
My favorite character on the show is the woman from the last episode. What was the? I'm blanking right now.
What?
The incredible woman from the last episode who had to.
Right.
Rose.
Rose. Betty.
Yeah, amazing. But in general,
my favorite character is the male robot.
I love Paige. I think she's fantastic. And I think she killed it in the scene.
Play favorites, okay?
Oh, fine.
Everyone,
okay.
Everybody's
everyone's
amazing.
Great.
In their
No,
own right.
Holly Taylor, is that the actress?
Yeah,
she did an excellent job tonight. I will say she did an excellent job tonight.
We have to get her on the podcast.
I tweeted at her earlier. I was excited.
She was
Tweet. All right.
And actually, I really loved Henry's beats this episode too, and it was nice to see a little bit more of him.
That was kind of the most he's done.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten a lot of lines.
Yeah.
He had a lot of, he was the
He's in
comedic
puberty.
relief.
You hear that little voice
Yeah.
crack? Little voice.
See that perfectly curated stash of magazine photos.
We were all laughing. You were like, you guys are
Beeman's
gross.
wife.
No, it was just kind of, I just thought, I guess for me, I figured he'd have like better quality stuff.
Nah, there's
And
like
that
a
maybe-
three-man.
It's 1983.
Top of
And
my
is it
dad's
really
closet,
like-
I used to have to do the same thing, rip out a page here.
It's
rough times.
In those days, with no internet, I mean, that's the equivalent of like, well, we won't get into that
And I
conversation.
also I figured that he would it was just funny that like his top pick was his neighbor's wife. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's very cliche, but I guess it's true.
I think it's totally true. That's the person in
we're
your
very
neighborhood
blessed.
is the person you kind of obsess over.
We're
No.
very blessed to be living in the internet age. Let's just say.
Let's just move on.
Oh, jeez, you guys.
My grandfather had to do that to
Steve. Cheer down. Hormones. Summertime. Okay, on that note, shall we go into the Russians? Let's just group them all together.
The Russians.
Zeneda is a double spy.
Like we said about Stan just being a middling, is he good? Is he bad at his job?
Actually,
it's like, I don't know. First of all, whose job is it to check the bathroom?
Yeah, it's his, but she did it after he checked. He should have checked again after. But he was right to suspect her. He just has to have better follow through. I think that's the big issue with Stan. He just doesn't have enough follow through.
He gets distracted. He's like, I was on the Zeneda thing and now I'm kind of off
I think he's kind of insecure. If he had higher self-esteem, maybe he would have stayed on it.
I don't know
He
about
straight
that.
up destroyed that bathroom earlier in the season.
excellent.
Remember? And probably looking for something. And
And
if
he
he
just gave up.
Yeah. He's like he had the great
interesting.
suspicion. Yeah.
Well, they ran the mission though last episode with him and Oleg to scare her into admitting that she was a spy, and she stood pat.
Right.
Dude.
So she kind of dodged the bullet.
No,
so he's
that's
not really
true.
suspecting
She's
her
still
anymore.
a Russian spy.
Yeah.
Okay, come on now. He's been all I gotta say is Stan has been living across from 2 Russian spies for like 3 years. So
Exactly.
Oh, Stan, you get this close and then you doubt yourself. Have better confidence, my friend. Have better confidence.
Look under the sink.
Look under the sink after she leaves the restroom.
What do you think was on there?
Oh, it was the.
That was the
it was the note you saw later on.
Yeah, it was the note that she
They
gave
attacked-
to
I was attacked by
Resident
one of
Turret.
them.
Right. Now we know she is codenamed Willow at the Resident Turret.
Willow.
Yes.
But it's like I was talking about last episode. There's so many crosses and double crosses going on with the Russians that even they are getting confused.
Yeah.
And they're kind of
So
screwing
the-
up with their own plans.
They said it's compartmentalized. Right?
Exactly,
So not
yeah.
everybody there knows
What's going
whose
on.
missions or what, which is how you have to keep it.
Right.
But sometimes it
That
messes you up.
Right.
Yeah.
So Oleg doesn't really know what's going on. So Oleg screws up this other operation he had no idea about.
See, it only works if everybody is totally in line, which nobody ever is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that whole system doesn't work at all.
Right.
They wouldn't expect Oleg to be reaching out to Stan or Stan to be reaching out to Oleg, you know,
Right.
trying to figure this out. So that's an interesting point. And then jumping on to the whole thing with Nina and the scientist and how that seed's kind of being planted with Oleg, where it's Oleg's responsibility to get pictures of the bomber to get to the scientist who's being seduced by Nina and Oleg doesn't know, which is so complicated.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. I thought one of the funny elements of this episode was just men are stupid, and when women are hot, they're even dumber over
Yes.
and over again.
Wait, say that again? When men are stupid and when women are hot, they're even dumber? Is that what you said?
No, when women are hot, men are dumber.
That's basically what I'm getting at. I'm basically just getting at that men this show likes to just sell that, like, if the woman is hot, the male will fall for it. Like, you know, it's the same thing when you saw Elizabeth in the hotel room. And the like.
That was real easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that Matthew Rhys hasn't had plenty of scenes where he's charmed a woman in the episodes this season, but just.
But do you think Baklanov is being seduced by Nina yet? Because I don't think that's quite happened yet.
I definitely got there was the look. He gave her the look.
I think he gave her the look of more of, oh, this is someone I can communicate with because she speaks English
Right.
and that she's also lived in America. So I think he found that kind of camaraderie in it. I don't know if he's going to be as easy to seduce.
I don't think
I'm
so either.
actually not going to male bash, and it's usually like what I enjoy doing. But at this point, I'm going to
it's a sport
say,
for you.
you know, you guys aren't all dumb. Sometimes you do think with your little one and not your big one. But, you know, it's, I think at this point, I wouldn't say that the theme was that all men are dumb if there's a hot woman. Because if that were the case, then, and God, I can't believe I'm going to say this, then Philip would probably already have sealed the deal with the Kimmy situation.
Yeah.
I know she's underage, but she still is like a hot, tight-bodied thing.
Yeah.
She passes out real easily, that Kimmy.
Yeah, she does.
She's
Seriously.
15. Like,
Yeah.
well,
She's
actually,
asleep pretty early.
I can hold my liquor at 15.
Yeah.
But
But
nonetheless.
something again I loved about that Nina scene is that Nina is spying for the Russian government, but at the same time she's being spied on by the Russian government. Like you could see like people like the superiors like kind of giving her eyes like what are you doing?
It's the secretary woman walking past and like
It's
kind of
it's once
eyeballing her.
again the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. It's kind of like this. It's kind of the thing that like brought about the downfall of the Soviet Union is that, like nobody knows what's going on and everybody's trying to double cross each
Lack
other
of
and
communication is
Yeah.
what ends most relationships.
yeah, completely.
So, well, yeah. So on that note, then there was also just a slight blip of Yusuf and the Afghan group. So, which kind of ties back because we can jump into Kimmy and Yusuf because they're kind of tied together.
Sure.
Of they're bringing Yusuf back, and what was the whole deal with the hotel? I didn't quite understand why they were needed that in at the hotel. Did anyone
I
else?
didn't know.
It seems like something they set up in this episode that will pay off in a future
Okay.
episode.
Yeah, like
That's-
he'll be
yeah,
staying
she
there
said-
later or something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
he's coming back later.
Like they're halfway there, but I guess the information they discovered on the tape at Kimmy's house,
Which
and
I
it
couldn't
was.
quite make out.
I don't think we were really
Okay.
supposed to. I think the main point was that Yusuf
If
is
it's
coming
coming,
back,
that was the main
and
takeaway.
that it ties into information that the CIA is giving the ISI. So they're setting. I think all of that was just setting everything up. I think they also just brought back Kimmy because he needs to touch on Kimmy. Thank goodness they didn't do any more touching than that. I just don't.
But it still
want
brings up some
that
questions for me,
storyline.
like because we haven't seen Kimmy the last few episodes.
Yeah.
We've got to assume that Jim has been keeping up this relationship with Kimmy this whole time, and there's stuff we haven't seen.
I'm just gonna assume she's on spring break and that she was with her family.
You also just have to assume like
There was that picture of her with her family. That's right. So
Yeah,
maybe she was on vacation.
I think that was more of them tying on to the whole conversation that Philip had with Pastor Tim about family
Yeah,
vacation
no, for
together
sure,
and all
but-
that. You know, they do those kind of planned things.
Right. They also the whole like surrogate parent theme in this
Huge
episode
theme.
that was running
It's a
throughout
big,
it.
big
There was
theme.
definitely like the picture, and then I don't think they've slept together yet. I think
No,
they
we-
I don't think so
I don't think
either.
it's happened yet.
They would let
But
us
I'm just
know.
curious what Kimmy feels about the relationship at this point. If she's cool with just keeping it chaste, because at one point she completely was not.
She said, "You're the only one that cares about me." So
Right,
it
right,
seems
right.
like she's in a good place with him.
Yeah, it seems like with the whole when he did that whole thing, I'm finding religion and all that kind of stuff. That kind of sold her on.
diffused her slightly.
Cooled her hormones.
Yeah.
I definitely thought they were doing the thing. Like for a second there when he was in the bedroom, I thought that she was like, "I'm gonna go to the bathroom for a second."
Oh, I thought so too.
The
I was-
I was like, that's not what this
The-
episode should be about.
No, for a second I thought it was gonna be the whole. What's the Bill Murray movie where the girl walks out the Broken Flowers?
yeah, oh yeah, that's right.
And the chick just walks out and she's naked. Yeah.
Oh, right.
They might just do some crazy
I thought you were
shenanigans.
talking about
Lost in
the
Translation?
Varsity Blues movie.
Or perhaps Tootsie,
James Van
which
Der
they
Beek.
were.
Yeah,
There was Tootsie.
A
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of cultural. By the way, this I think was the most littered with cultural touchstone moments, like Tron.
Yeah.
We had Eddie Murphy,
That was a
Mr.
good one.
Robinson's Neighborhood.
Yeah.
The
Eddie Murphy
Yeah,
was the
was
first
great.
thing.
They were
Hilarious
like,
that accent.
This is 1982.
Yeah, the verdict
This
was
is-
on the poster.
Yeah.
The verdict.
Tootsie, by the way, about a man in disguise, thematic.
Tron
Yeah.
is about a guy who ends up trying to fight for the oppressed programs inside of a video game.
Totally
Yeah.
true. And real subtle, but in the scene where Zendaya was putting the note in the bathroom, the music you could hear in the background was the theme to the movie The Sting.
Ooh, is that why they called it?
That could be
Stingers?
part of why. I also think it's because what Pastor Tim and Paige were kind of running on the Jennings was they had kind of their own little sting going as well.
Wait, they didn't play. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
That's what yeah.
The Entertainer.
The Entertainer.
It's called
yeah.
The Entertainer.
Oh, okay. I know that is da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
I don't really know what the significance of the verdict is because he's a. Yeah, I don't
I have
really.
to look into
Yeah.
that. I have to wiki that one and come back
Yeah.
next week for an answer.
It's a great
To
movie.
go back to that, to kind of touch on just the whole idea of surrogate families, and then we'll go into Paige, but Stan and Henry, that was a really interesting dynamic
Really
to
odd.
say to
Yeah.
do, where they kind of had Henry. I don't know. I feel like Henry's kind of like conning Stan because he wants to see more, get another picture of his wife.
It sort of seems like it.
And he was like, Mrs. Beeman's coming over later, right?
Right? I just kind of get that feeling, or maybe it is the feeling of him not feeling that connected to his own father.
I really do think that's what's going on. I feel I feel like both Paige and Henry are like, you guys, our parents are so disconnected from us.
Yeah.
Paige has found this other surrogate father figure. Henry hasn't really found that. Stan, meanwhile, is also incredibly lonely.
Yeah,
There's kind of a connection forming there.
It makes sense that Stan and Henry would find each other because they're just kind of like lonely people in the
Yeah.
show who don't really have anyone that
Stan's
they
not
seem to
connected
turn
to his own son as much anymore, and he was talking
Exactly.
in a couple episodes ago about how it was so much simpler when they were younger.
Yeah.
You know what? I also think that because Paige was on the verge of what just happened this whole time, they have had so much emotional investment in her. I feel like not just that we haven't seen Henry, I think they've been neglecting Henry.
Yeah. Which is interesting once Paige discovers. Did you have any comments on Stan and
Henry, I was just going to say that I think that they're lonely and that there's obviously a plot device here hidden in the Henry relationship. I also think Henry's kind of a little shit, and that's I don't really think that he's.
What?
Well,
Hey.
I wrote that I think Henry might be. Okay.
I have a
so
prediction, but we
I
can
have a
talk about it
prediction.
later.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so let's go ahead and get into Paige.
Oh wait,
Paige.
really quick
Go
before we get
ahead.
into Paige, because it's one thing with Stan, the thing that happened at the end of the episode.
Oh, yeah.
the Martha suspicion.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I just wanted to touch on it really quickly because they definitely gave you one of those. They threw us a little bit of a bone. What's going to happen? And you wonder because he gets those weird suspicions, and he's very often right.
But
then
has no
he doesn't
follow through.
follow through.
Yeah.
By the way, I did love that it was like an eye twitch
Yeah.
that gave away Martha. I love that.
Yeah.
Like this little eye
Were you
twitch.
thinking
where
of someone? No.
Right. That was just really cool. As always, the show is shot through the eyes.
Yeah.
But look, at the same time, Stan might be suspicious of Martha. I'm pretty sure Taffet and Agent Gadd and company are suspicious of Stan.
Oh, Adderholt.
Right,
And all
yeah.
Them, yeah.
So
Do you manage Agent Gadd's pen collection?
exactly. so even if Stan says, I think Martha might be a spy, they could just say, oh, you're deflecting attention away from yourself.
Well, it is something where they don't really know that much about Martha.
Right.
They don't know too much about her personal life. When she left to go deal with
They
a
don't know who
family
her
issue,
family is.
they don't know her family. She doesn't talk about those type of things. That would make you suspicious. It was also the thing leading into this that that eventually found out Elizabeth and Philip with Paige. You know, they didn't have those normal things that people discuss in their life.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is suspicious.
It is. Before we get to Paige, I just wanted to bring up one other tiny little just because I think it's important. I think that moment where Gabriel gave him the choice of Philip's choice of forcing his son to come back from Afghanistan, and it just really brought into clarity, I think, Philip's position towards his kids, which is like wanting them to have a choice. I think that's sort of where he's coming from, which is why he didn't, or maybe he was thinking that this will make him more, I don't know what you guys think. Did that make him more beholden? Do you think that he was thinking like, oh, well, if I say I want him back, then I now owe?
I think it's partly that he didn't, not beholden, but that he didn't want to control his children's lives, because obviously his son made that choice.
Yeah.
But with that said, it was also interesting because then you see that Philip is still a soldier serving his country, and that he's still loyal
also
to
a test, maybe, too.
Russia.
Partly.
Yeah, it could be.
And I think Philip just doesn't want to do any of Gabriel's mind games anymore
Yeah.
at this
You
point.
think so?
Yeah, he's just like, oh, you know what? Anything you're telling me, I'm just gonna like try to ignore it as much as
If
possible.
you're involved, it's probably shenanigans.
It's just been interesting to see that change for Philip to act more like the soldier and for Elizabeth to ask for the favor. So,
If that even happened.
well, it did.
Oh, we know it did. Oh, she
Yeah.
said it last week.
Yeah, she said
Okay.
it last week when she was talking
Oh,
with
that's
Gabriel.
right. Okay,
So,
I was thinking for a second. I'm like, is he
no,
playing
he wasn't
him right
playing
now?
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did ask like
That's
if
right.
there was anything that could be done.
That's right.
So on that note, shall we go?
Yes.
Into Paige.
The Paige explosion.
I
Yeah.
love the lead-in line. You guys are trying to turn me into travel agents?
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Perfect.
good one. That was a
And
good
then
line.
they pan to Elizabeth, and you just see her laugh, and they kind of hold it for a
Right,
bit.
right.
I was like, that's cute.
But look, those initial scenes, first the first scene of Pastor Tim, and then the scene when Paige just randomly shows up at the travel agent's office, didn't seem to kind of out of place at first, but only after watching the entire episode you realize like they're trying to like get dirt on Philip and Elizabeth. The two of them are kind of working together to try to figure out what's going on.
She did kind of mention that she just doesn't know anything about her family. And I got to give Paige a lot of credit for even picking up on that. As a teenager, I was at one point a young female teenager. And I could say a young lass. And I didn't, lass is guy. But I didn't care that much at that time about, my parents as individual adults.
Right.
I didn't see them as that way. It was a very selfish time. So for her to kind of to be aware of like, this is odd or this is changing, or like to be so aware of how her parents interact as individuals was very interesting.
But at the same time, I think that's a very normal coming of age thing to kind of realize my parents aren't the people they've been presenting to me my entire life. They're probably keeping secrets from me.
But it's one thing to have that realization. Like I think we've kind of touched on this before. The moment you realize that your parents are human and that they're prone to all the flaws of humanity. It's another to have that realization and then go, something is wrong. Well, and actually call them out on it.
That is true.
I think for somebody her age, it was a pretty impressive thing to put together. And I was actually thinking about it because I have a friend whose parents were spies and they got arrested for spying.
Whoa.
I don't want to get into all the details, but I feel like I know with a pretty high degree of certainty that he didn't know. And he was in his 20s, and he didn't figure it out, and he's a super smart person.
Yeah.
And it was happening for his entire life.
So it's very perceptive of her.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's
I
not
think
something
it
that
is.
most teenagers will pick up on.
I don't think they would.
Or if they do, they won't ever say anything
That
about
said, I think the last thing in the world she expected was for them to say we grew up in the Soviet Union and we're spies.
Yeah, I don't think that was
I think
on her
I think she
radar.
thought it would be something like we have a criminal past or something like that.
Something a little bit more
a little bit more down to earth.
Let me ask you a question. So they're at home. They're about to have dinner. Phone rings. Elizabeth answers the phone. She says, "Oh, this is Mrs. Jennings, right? Or is that what she says, Jennings? Oh, it's for you." And he says, "Oh, blah, blah, okay, this is right. Okay, I got to go. The office, TPS reports, whatever he references. It's not that, but it's something similar." Who's calling the house? Who's talking to? It's not Kimmy. So he has.
No, it's their operators that they have.
So he has plans to already go to the party with Kimmy. That's what we're supposed to do.
So what they do, because they've talked about this before, it's somebody who calls and is usually
Right.
like, "Hi, I'm from Columbia Records. Would you
Right.
like to subscribe to this?" And everything they're saying is a code.
Right.
So you know, basically it could be somebody where they sound like they're calling from the travel agency,
Right.
but that's code for you need to meet with Kimmy tonight for this,
Right.
and that.
Right.
How does Kimmy ever call?
They have someone tailing. They have someone just like, or we need to get the tape. They have just people working an operation. It has nothing to do with individual Kimmy, like, or there is some way where she's able to channel information to him. I just forget. I don't know how they.
She's able to get in
up.
touch with him somehow. I was just trying to figure how would that work without cell phones. How
She
if
probably. She probably calls his voicemail.
She probably leaves a
Yeah.
voicemail at his house, at his other house,
his work house or something.
Yeah, and that's automatically patched through immediately,
Yeah.
probably to wherever.
Yeah, and they tell him she's on the
Yeah.
message.
Nonetheless, you know, their lives must seem really hollow to like an outsider looking in. Like they don't seem like very good travel agents. They are just always leaving in the middle of the night randomly. They don't have any family in the area. I could see why Paige would get extremely
Do
suspicious.
you think you would figure it out? That sounds like you're pretty cocky. You feel like you would get it.
I think
I would get it.
I think I would know something was wrong. I don't think I would sit down and be like, "You're communist spies."
Right,
I know
okay.
it, but I would figure out something is up
Do
and
you
they're
think
not
you would
telling me.
confront? That's the thing that I think she
Yeah.
said that takes it a step further. That's the impressive part.
No, but I think they've done a really good job setting up Paige's character to the point that I believe this character would confront
She's
him.
grown a lot.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
And she's got a very strong sense of right and wrong. She's almost kind of a goody two shoes. I could see how she'd be like a really annoying kid to go to high school with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, she'd be super.
We would not get along.
No,
No.
but she's totally the kid who would call her parents out on something like that.
So I was gonna say quickly because I know we do have to get predictions before we go. Do we each want to sound off with a final thought on the scene, maybe a favorite moment, and then get to predictions? 'Cause-
Oh, well, yeah, no, we definitely should get to predictions, but I did want to touch on just that final moment of Stan, when Stan walks into the room,
Right.
and she realizes that this whole time that they've known this man, that her parents are spies,
Great
and that they've been,
moment.
like, eating dinner with this man, and just that realization. What did you guys think of that, just before we...
I thought that was amazing because it was her first glimpse of action. Really, it was her first job. It's almost like her first assignment. Now you're in. Now you're fully, at your dinner table is spying. I think it was amazing that such a normal. Her whole world is now blown. Really, like
Exactly.
That's
At that point,
it's like
just
the Matrix scene.
exactly at that point, just being a bystander, like you're now like complicit in this.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing. I loved the tension. I loved the sort of him laughing and smiling moment. Like it was just felt like it was out of a movie. But the thing that I loved the most was actually in the scene when they're breaking the news to her and they look at her and they go, "This is very, very important. If you tell anybody this, we will go to jail for good."
And there was just this mild pause when he said, "If you tell anyone about this," before he said we were going to go to jail. And I was like, "Oh my God, is he going to threaten to kill us?"
I thought so too. Yeah.
That's what I was
I was like, really?
I
Would
know.
you do that?
I know.
So-
I was like, are we sick? What is going on?
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
It's like, you better keep your mouth shut, kid.
Yeah.
what will happen?
On my paper here, I wrote, "We will go to jail for good" is greater than "we will kill them."
Yeah.
but also the phone call before we get to predictions. The phone call with Pastor Tim, she could have gone multiple ways. She sort of was in the middle
toed the
there.
line.
She also didn't lie.
Yeah.
I thought
Right.
she was gonna. I was writing down. Oh, she's already fully in as a spy. I thought she was gonna make up an excuse for them,
No.
and she didn't.
Yeah. It'll be interesting if she ends up confiding in anyone other than Stan, that it won't be good. I mean, they'll probably protect her, but it won't be good for whoever she confides in.
Not a good
No.
scene.
On that note, shall we go into predictions?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Next, shall we start?
Oh man, you guys, I gotta start. Okay.
Oh wait, if you don't want to
No,
start,
no,
I
I'll
can
start.
start.
I have
I'll
a thought.
start.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
So my prediction is that we have episode 11 now, right? So somebody has to die. I'm gonna go with. Oh, man, I like you, Kelly. I'm going with Pastor Tim has to die.
Seems like it, right? He'll get
okay.
told. or
Yeah,
something.
I love you, Kelly, but you may have to die. Sorry, just a prediction. It means nothing.
See, I really think the moments where you think that Paige might crack, confide in Pastor Tim, confide in Stan, it's you know, it seems so natural. You'd think like you know, she's a teenager, she's got this strong sense of morality, she would crack. I don't think she's going to. I think she's going to make it through the entire season. By the end of it, not only will she have not told anybody, but she might actually start doing little things for them.
I don't trust teenagers.
No, you shouldn't.
I think Henry's relationship to Stan is going to be the tell that's going to out Paige. I don't even think that Paige will necessarily be straight with Henry. I don't even think she'll tell him. I think that'll be more like Henry can tell there's something weird going on, and he's going to say something to Stan about it.
Brothers and sisters know stuff about each
Yeah,
other.
That's how I think it's going to get outed.
Interesting. I don't think Henry is that observant, but I do think that Paige will want to confide in someone, and the person that she will choose to confide in will be her brother, because they're a family and he should know. And then from Henry going closer to Stan is how
You guys are on the same.
Yeah. So
You know,
I think eventually Stan's
but I
gonna
think you're
find
right
out.
about one thing. I think we can all agree. There's no way on earth a 16-year-old girl could not tell a single person about this.
Seems crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
It's impossible.
Seems totally insane.
I don't
It's
know.
impossible.
I don't know. I'm just like for most characters, you're right. Again, I think they've done a really good job building this character. I believe she wouldn't.
I don't think
I'm a
there's any-
26-year-old man, and I've
Nobody
struggled
can
not to tell anybody.
tell
So-
anybody.
I was
so
supposed to
you
say,
have
I don't
tell
think
one
there's
person
anyone like
everything.
if Elizabeth and Philip didn't have each other, I'm sure they would
It's
eventually have to
impossible.
tell.
Every person has to tell one person their secrets.
Right.
Even Elizabeth told
Yeah.
what's his face, drug dealer.
Gregory?
Yeah, but
Gregory.
Gregory was part of the cause.
Gregory, but he was not he didn't know like their life. He was brought into the cause like the way
Right.
she brings in most people, but then she started to tell him like her actual life.
Yeah.
And she didn't kill him. So yeah, I think it's gonna she's gonna have to tell someone. I just think that's where it's gonna go.
I'm so excited for these last 3
Yeah.
episodes.
It always gets so
Crazy.
good in the last few
Yeah.
episodes.
Yeah, they
the Americans
do.
always gets really good at the
Yeah,
end.
really.
Yeah.
So where can everyone find everyone?
You can find me at Matt Ritter1 on Twitter, Matt Ritter Comedy on YouTube, and that's my website.
Guys, go to at Radio TFB on Twitter. Go to joshrichmond.net for more.
Ben Bateman Media, Twitter, Instagram. That's my sign.
And at Miss Adrian Snow, MSADRIANSNOW on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Americans After Show, and we will see you next Wednesday.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.